The year is 1998. As One Week by the Barenaked Ladies blares from the radio, Grunty plummets from her tower as you finally beat Banjo Kazooie. As the second credits roll, you start thinking out what to play next. Maybe that new game with the weird elf kid wearing the funny hat. But then Mumbo says those magic words, or, well, they appear on screen. Banjo Tooie. Banjo Kazooie was already getting a sequel in 2 years. But how do you make a sequel to a near-perfect game? Well, apparently, the answer was to just make everything really big. The year 2000 in video games wasn't as incredible as 1998 was, as we were on the tail end of the PS1 N64 console cycle, but still, in the immortal words of a contemporary poet from the year 2000, man, it's a hot one. Like 7 inches from the midday sun. 2000 saw the last gasp of major releases for the N64, with Pokemon Stadium, Kirby and the Crystal Shards, Perfect Dark, and Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask all coming out in the first 6 months of the year. The PlayStation 2 released in North America on October 26th with some hot titles like Madden NFL 2001, SSX, Armored Core 2, and Time Splitters. Then on November 20th, 2000, just under 2.5 years after the original, Banjo Tooie was released to the public and overwhelmingly positive reviews. Nintendo Power referred to it as the perfect cross between Donkey Kong 64 and Banjo Kazooie, which is actually a genius way to describe this game, and I wish I had come up with it. But that was the general consensus on Tooie. It was a bigger, more fleshed out Banjo Kazooie and the logical next step in the series, even if many critics didn't think it quite lived up to the original. There were also complaints about lack of innovation, but in a market that was eating up 3D platformers, this wasn't too big of a deal. Honestly, my personal feelings on Tooie are muddled. I love this game, and I will always love this game for what it meant to me growing up. It was one of the first video games I ever played, and actually, I played Tooie before even realizing that Banjo Kazooie existed. I legitimately thought that Kazooie's name was Tooie for longer than I'm willing to admit. But the game isn't perfect. It's bloated and overcomplicated at times, often losing the fast-paced magic that made the original such a fun playthrough. It still holds a lot of the same qualities as its predecessor, and it still does a lot of them well, but it has plenty of its own issues. Even through all that, Tooie is still one of my favorite games of all time, so I do want to focus on some of the things I think this game does exceptionally well, since I really feel like most of the conversation about this game at this point is just that it's not Banjo Kazooie. I will also talk about the things that I don't think the game does well, and that drove me insane while I was replaying it recently. The first thing that anyone who boots up Banjo Tooie will notice is that the game is enormous. It has an overworld that puts Grunty's castle to shame, and 8 distinct levels that are probably at least 2 or 3 times bigger than any level in the original. The levels themselves are so large that the game has warp pads that help you traverse the different areas. This puts the focus on exploration, and for a young kid who has no real idea about the concept of free time, this game is a wonderland. I cannot begin to describe how much time I spent just flying around Hailfire Peaks or running around as a dinosaur in Pterodactyl Land, not even attempting to get a jiggy. The levels all have distinct areas to explore and different environments to traverse. 2 of my personal favorites are Jolly Roger's Lagoon and Hailfire Peaks. Hailfire is my favorite level, but Jolly's is here solely for the first time you swim down into the water and the music slowly changes from a pirate shanty to a much smoother melody and you just see the massive underwater area. It's just so cool. Also, there's no drowning, so you can explore as much as you want. Personally, the coolest aspect of the game for me is its interconnectivity. Every single level is connected to at least one of the other levels directly. For example, the first level has doors to the 2nd, 5th, and 7th levels in them, and even a quest that requires doing something in level 5. This gives life to the world and makes it feel like an actual area instead of just a combination of levels. It's just something I think is so cool, and I wish more games did it. I just like the idea that this is almost an open world game, even if the levels are segmented. Yes, I've played Dark Souls. It also opens up some opportunities for some cool sequence breaks, like when I used the level 1 entrance to level 5 to learn a new move before I'd even opened up that full level. Then I used that move to get a jig in level 4, and it made me feel like I had the largest brain in the cosmos. However, where the issue lies here is in management of scope. Exploration is a cool idea and a nice concept when you have an excess amount of time to do it. However, when you boil the game down to its actual goal of collecting, there just winds up being a lot of empty space in some of the levels. This issue hit me really hard when I was replaying Tooie recently as an adult, as I just wound up constantly using the teleport pads to complete the level as quickly as possible. There's little to no value in exploration once you've done it for the first time and realize where stuff is located. It just becomes bothersome space. The interconnectivity is an incredible concept, but again, in certain areas, it just causes unnecessary backtracking, aka when you have to feed cavemen from level 5 with food from level 3 using a move you learned in level 6. It often just feels like a time waster or a complication for the sake of complication. It's not awful, but it does make the game more difficult to complete. It just sometimes creates tedium, which is not the goal for a game that's supposed to be all about keeping the player engaged through small gratification.
What a thrill with darkness and
One of the best things about Tooie is the fact that the game doesn't Metroid you at the beginning. It takes place chronologically after Banjo Kazooie, and therefore you keep all the moves you learned in the first game. Then you learn a lot more. The game throws new mechanics at you left and right, from FPS sections to hoop minigames to dodgeball. This helps freshen up the gameplay a bit, and is the closest real thing to innovation that the game does. The main new mechanic in the game is these split pads that let the player control Banjo or Kazooie separately and gives each of them their own unique set of moves. It's the one mechanic that's actually an improvement over the first game, as it adds complexity to the puzzles but also isn't so overwhelmingly complicated that it's unwieldy to use. It's also just fun to beat people up with that sweet blue backpack or glide around as Kazooie. The issue here is that they often try to beat new mechanics into your head, with the gravest offense being the FPS mechanics. 1, maybe even 2 jiggies based around FPS would have been fine, but the roughly 12 or 15 jiggies that have it is a lot. Also, making the final battle entirely FPS is criminal. Really and truly, the last battle with Grunty is not fun to play, and for a series that prides itself on fun gameplay, that is a serious crime. Especially after how good the final boss fight is in Kazooie.
Whoa!
This will be a pretty short section because once again the writing is fabulous in Banjo Tooie. In fact, they ratcheted it all the way up from Kazooie with way more dialogue and snark and jokes from the first game. There are incredible jokes in nearly every level, and most of the character interactions have some real entertainment to them. This is also the only part of the game that gets better as you get older, as there are a lot of jokes that I never got growing up that I found hilarious now. No issues here, as the writing is incredibly clean even 20 years later, and I've been Stockholm Syndrome into liking the voice acting, so it's all great. I've already talked a lot about the things I like about the music in Banjo games when I talked about Banjo Kazooie, but with more space in the cartridge this time around, Grant Kirkhope was able to rev up even more bangers, with each world theme coming in a ton of different variants. All the songs are catchy, and I do actually like this soundtrack better than the first games. It's so good that even the worst level in the game, Grunty's Industries, still has a song that slaps, and makes it almost worth having to play that level for 4 hours. Every year, millions of gamers fall victim to bird-related injuries at the hands of one abnormally large anthropomorphic canary. Hand cramps, blisters, loss of limbs, and the will to live. It is truly an epidemic that is destroying households across the country.
Hi, I'm George Lestaufos, and if you or a loved one has been harmed in a bird-related accident, then we're here to help. Through thorough research, we've found that Canary Mary was actually programmed to be nearly impossible to beat, as she uses a rubber band effect, which causes her to catch up no matter how fast you smash. That simple fact could save you millions in court, so let us help you. Just call 1-800-ICE-CUBE. That's 1-800-ICE-CUBE. George and Mildred attorneys at law. We freeze out the competition. We did it! We did it! We did it! Oh, I wish I had a face cam on! Woo! I wanna die.
Uh-oh.
I've already covered some of the issues this game has, but at its core, the main issue is just that the game is bloated. Rare went all in making the biggest and most involved game that they could, making sure they put in all the ideas that they had had to cut from Banjo Kazooie, and what you get is a fun game that probably has a bit too much in it. It hurts the flow of the game and the perfect design of the original to add so much downtime between collecting some jiggies. Collectathons thrive on the moment-to-moment platforming gameplay and the thrill of the next thing to collect being right around the corner. When you have to wait 20 minutes and jump through a bunch of hoops to just get one thing, it sort of takes away the entire reason to play the game in the first place. There are also a lot of little time wasters in this game, from animations that are repeated to the infamous crushing shed, and it's just something that you really feel when you're replaying it. Its replayability really is minimal at best, and that's where most of the issues I have with it come from. I really do love this game, and my initial idea for this video was actually going to be something along the lines of my gushing about Banjo Kazooie. And then I replayed it, and it just doesn't hold up as well as Kazooie does. It's a good, probably even great game, it's just that once you've done everything, once you explore for the first time, there's no real reason to go back. But, flaws and all, I still love it, in a very nostalgia-fueled, subjective kind of way. And at the end of the day, isn't that what really matters? Canary Mary can go to hell, though. Thank you guys for watching. I actually got a video out relatively fast after the last one this time. Very happy with that. This video has been in the works for almost 6 months, just from like when I started originally replaying Tooie to now. So it's certainly been a journey. Obviously this is not an anime video, but I definitely wanted to at least do some video game stuff occasionally. Or at the very least do this video, because I had been promising it, and I had been working on it, and I wanted to get it in. It was definitely a journey, just from thinking I was going to make this a lot like the Banjo Kazooie video, and then realizing there's a lot of issues I have with Tooie. But, as I said in the actual script, I do still really like the game, and I'll probably wind up replaying it again, even though I said that it's not good when you replay it. Anyway, as always, if you liked the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Mostly subscribe. Also the likes help. And the next video will probably be something anime related. I don't know. We'll see. But thank you guys for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, once again, I thank you very much, and see you later. Bye. It wasn't the icy side.